Breadbox Media programming is brought to you by...
Hi, I'm Scott Hahn, and I'd like to invite you personally to join me and Breadbox Media on August 24th in New Oxford, Pennsylvania, for a day of spiritual renewal. I'll be presenting 3 talks, one on St. Joseph, one on the Sacrament of Matrimony, and another one on the Holy Eucharist. Learn more and register at breadboxmedia.com/PA conference. I hope to see you there.
Introducing the redesigned CatholicSingles.com, featuring new ways that put the spotlight on the person and their faith, not just a profile picture. For the past 20 years, faithful Catholics have used CatholicSingles.com, and the reimagined CatholicSingles.com website is ready to help single Catholics take the next step in sharing meaningful relationships with other faithful Catholics. Remember, CatholicSingles.com for faith, fellowship, and love.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Lisa, Hendey, and Friends. This week on the podcast, again, I have the great joy of welcoming a friend that I sort of call a friend in real life too, even though we don't see each other very often. Our guest this week is David Dziena, and David is here today to talk with us about a beautiful new book that he has authored, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But just so that you know a little bit more about him in his non-children book writing life, he is the editorial director at Flom Publishing Group, which is a division of Bayard, and also spent a good deal of time working for Our Sunday Visitor. He is the co-author and editor of numerous books, and a really, really wonderful force in Catholic publishing, and someone who's doing amazing work. David lives in Massachusetts with his wife, Gloria, and he's dad to 4 children, and we're here to talk with them today about this brand new book, I Will Not Let Go, Daddy. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a treat. It's really a treat. And before we dive too much into the storybook, I always like to start out with my guests just asking them to tell us a little bit more about their story. So whatever you want to share on just for a couple moments, let us know a little bit more about your story.
Sure. Most of us, with our following the vocation, we kind of go in directions sometimes we don't expect. I started out after high school with thoughts about the priesthood. I had 4 years of college seminary, and then decided not to, and worked as a DRE using my skills, things that I learned over my college years, and worked as a DRE, and then in Catholic publishing from there, and with a little bit of youth ministry and confirmation retreats and things like that. So this is my 20th year in Catholic publishing. I started.
Wow, you started at 10.
I started at Silverbird again in '99, and then when RCL and Benziger and Silver merged in 2007, I was there for a little bit, and then moved on to Our Sunday Visitor for about 8 years before I came here to Flom. So that's pretty much my professional career. I was married with 4 children for about 10 years, and then I got divorced, and unfortunately for that, and then also annulled, and I got remarried.
So how long have you been with Flom now?
Since 2015.
It occurs to me that a man named David Dziena working at Flom, which are 2 of the most challenging multiple consonant in a row words. Yes. That's probably not the first time that you've heard that, but
yes, that's true.
That's amazing. Well, I think our path first crossed when you were at OSV, and I've been a big fan of your work since then. And it's one of the really special things about the Catholic publishing realm is that although we're often not in, immediate proximity to each other in terms of the day-to-day working environment, I always feel like we're co-workers in the vineyard. And so I was so excited when you reached out to me about this project, and I want to have you kind of give us like just a little bit of an overview of what our listeners will find when they pick up I Will Not Let Go, Daddy.
Well, it's a book that my daughter and I kind of co-wrote over the years. She's 12 now, but she was around 5 or 6 when this kind of ritual occurred between us. When she was staying with me, and even over Skype or FaceTime, and other times, she actually came up with this thing, and I think it started because she wanted to prolong the bedtime routine. And
Kids are great at stalling.
Right. We would read stories, and then I'd say goodnight and give her a hug, and then she would latch on, stay hugging, and I said, well, it's time to go to bed now, and she said, no, I can't let go, I won't let go, and some of that, that kind of thing, and it just became, I guess, part of the routine over time, and then along the way, we came up with, well, what about tomorrow at school? Or what about when you get home? Or, all the different things that happen during the day. And I guess maybe with my book background, I don't know, we thought of the idea of making a story about it. And so it's been kind of in our discussion or just back in the background for several years. And, it's kind of, what else would I say about it? It just kind of takes a father and child through a journey of kind of a fun time. What would happen if the father and daughter would be hugging all day long? But the ending is more for I'd say it's more for the father on how really you don't want your child to let go in the long run, that before you know it, they're busy texting and with their friends and all the things that they do. And then, of course, when they move on to careers and whatever their vocation may be. So the ending has more of a little twist, I guess, more of a deeper meaning for the father about kind of capturing that moment and holding on to those memories.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I fell in love with it immediately. And part of that, well, let's talk first of all about the fact that you list Anya as your co-author on the book. And I'm wondering what she thought about in seeing this come to fruition.
Well, it's funny that, for all those years, or especially early on, so say for the last 4 years, maybe, she was asking me about, well, how's it going? What's happening? Or she'd tell her teacher about, we're making a book together. And I had given her some storyboard page ideas about what it would look like, at least the text would be, before we had an illustrator work on it. And now that she's 12 and the book is out, and she's certainly at that stage where I kind of want to tell my friends I'm an author, or I wrote something, but it's kind of not cool to be hugging daddy, So it's kind of hitting it around. If it was a few years back, maybe it would have been a little more, publicly exciting for her. But I think she's kind of finding her way about how to appreciate it and to be proud of it in the midst of being a preteen.
Yeah, that's actually perhaps perfect timing. I know, I never had a daughter. I have 2 sons, but I know I'm kind of surviving 7th and 8th grade years of elementary school and what that was like with them, that, interacting in this way. But it's kind of cool, too, that you have this project together that will live on, and it's really fun. I don't know how old your oldest is, but I find with my kids now that, now that they're adults, it's like you have a whole renewed relationship with them, and this is something that will be a treasure for years to come.
Yeah, I do hope so. I think that it will. It's kind of a memory book for us, I guess you'd say, already, that we kind of look back at her younger years, and I think it's important, and we can even talk about this a little bit more, but I think it's important for fathers and daughters to establish, a close relationship early on. So through those years when you're not the priority, you still have a link. So when they come back out on the other end, they'll still be looking for your advice and guidance and love.
Yeah, I want to circle back to that. But before we talk about that, I want to ask you about the process of working with an illustrator. Your illustrator on the book is Michael Tortora. And there's a true humor and just a real creative look to the art in this book. As one who's written a children's book herself, I always, look really critically, not critically in a critical sense, but I look closely at art and illustration and what it does to bring a story to life. How was it for you to select Michael and to see the book come to life with his art?
Well, I think he's a great illustrator. Mike just graduated from Assumption College here. Bayard is just a little sidebar here. Bayard is owned by the Assumptionists, and that's why my office is in Massachusetts. We're on the campus of Assumption College, so one of the benefits of that is having interns work with us, and kind of as a private project. After Michael was finished with his internship, I said, well, really talented illustrator, especially at a young age, and would you be interested in doing this together? We can kind of just work on this project together, independent of Flom, because it's not a religion book per se. It's not a religious book. And he agreed, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for him also, just starting out his career, that he has kind of a book already under his belt when he goes out looking for work. And he's been great working with us, as with several other illustrators from the design department here at Assumption College, working with the Flom material and obviously on this book. So I think it's a great opportunity for a young, talented illustrator, and I know it's unusual in children's publishing to hire an illustrator kind of independent of, before you shop it around to a publisher. Usually the publisher wants to hire their own illustrator. But I figured one way or the other, especially in today's world, that we could self-publish this, even if a publisher does not take it on, which is how we're starting doing this. We're doing this independently.
Yeah, that's important to bring up. And it's interesting that the paradigm is shifting a little bit in publishing. I had a great chance to see the book early on, and I'm honestly really happy that you made the decision to go ahead and put this in the hands of people, because I think that, God only knows what the ultimate plan for our work will be, but this is a gift that right away is really significant. We're talking about, raising kids in an age that's increasingly complicated. You mentioned before, your own daughter, but I think any of us who are around kids recognize that their childhood looks very different than what ours did back in the day, and that they have a lot of things to contend with that call for their attention, that call them to be perhaps more worldly at a younger age than us, that call them to be far more overscheduled than I ever remember being. So I love the experience of sitting with a book with a child. Can you talk a little bit about how kind of story time impacted your relationship with your own kids?
It's really a good question, I think, because I look at that a lot. I'm not the best, especially since the routine wasn't regular for us, since she wasn't every night. I was trying to make the best every time that they're there. And when you're dealing with a shift in routine, and whether for them and for myself, I wasn't always the best at maintaining a consistent routine, I guess you'd say. And that's being honest about it. And I always looked at every time when my kids weren't with me as a chance to reboot and say, okay, what could I do better next time? Yeah. And one of not every parent gets to do that. Some parents, they're with children all the time, don't have much of a chance to reflect like that. And I do admire parents who have that gift of having the kids with them all the time. But the bedtime routine, the reading routine, was something that I felt was a good way to kind of establish some kind of stability and consistency. I mean, they were reading with their mother as well. And I also know the importance, of course, of reading, and the schools were requiring 20 minutes of reading a night, as I think a lot of schools do. And it was not something that I did too often as a child. So I see the importance of that later on in today's world, and how important that is. So it really did become like kind of one of the anchors of the bedtime ritual, let alone of the time that the kids were with me. And I tried to do that individually with them as much as I could, to have that one-on-one time.
Yeah, that's it's something that even as things are evolving with technology, it remains such a special time, I think, for parents. And I know for me that, like, I was pretty much reading to my boys from when they were inside me, but definitely from the moment they popped out, long before they kind of understood. I was reading them, Goodnight Moon and other things like the standard board books that were for them just fodder for something to suck on, when when they didn't really understand it. But I think we share that, that time together. And it's interesting that what you've created as a book that will become, that moment for parents and their children, or grandparents and their children, to share, whether it's something that you share daily or not. This book, I Will Not Let Go, Daddy, is like a Goodnight Moon, or, these other kind of like special, poignant. It only takes a few moments to read this book, but you find as a mom or a dad that when you find a book like this that's so important, it becomes the one that you come back to night after night. And so what you've given to families is this great gift of, 5 or 10 minutes to reflect on the gift of love and what it means, even if we're not physically with each other, to be with each other spiritually. So that must feel really awesome to have created something so special. I'm trying to be not think about it that deeply. I guess when, I don't know, because I think it's getting a little embarrassed about it. I think, but I do hope that it does help others, and it actually engages in a discussion about relationship, like you said, Lisa, when people are together or not, right,
as well as the ending, where while it's kind of written with a double meaning for the father or parent, it is a good chance for discussion where the parent and the child together could talk about, well, what does God want for you? What would you like to be when you grow up? That phrase, but also to kind of weave it into what is really God calling you to do at whatever age would be, in the appropriate age to kind of introduce that, or where the child can understand what that means. Because it's not just the traditional of I want my child to be married, have kids, and all of those things. It's not your wish for them. It's what God wants for them. And while it doesn't say that in the book, that's kind of where my intention was by incorporating that ending.
I like that you sort of infer that, but don't beat it over the head, just because, certainly we need books that are overtly Catholic or overtly Christian or overtly faith-oriented. A book like this that perhaps will open the door to something more deep can be shared, by any person. And so that's a great, I think that's part of the, we talk about the new evangelization. Sometimes it's really overt and sometimes it's just a door left open. Mm-hmm. So that's a great thing. It's funny, I'm a daddy's girl, so it really kind of, I'm a almost 56-year-old daddy's girl. and so for me at this point in my relationship with my dad, it's interesting that our listeners know that my mom is going through some health struggles, and I've been in almost daily phone conversations with my dad, who lives down in Mississippi, just to check in with him and, to have those moments to find out how my mom is doing, but also how he's doing. And it's a relationship that's evolved over the years into something that's, really beautiful, and a chance for me to kind of love him in the many ways he's loved me for so many years. What was your relationship like with your parents, and how does it impact on your own kind of style of parenting, the way that you're doing right now?
Well, we had a very close family, and while there's a relationship different with my mother than, of course, with my father, just the nature, different dynamics between the two personalities. Thankfully, my sister and I grew up in a good family, a loving family. My parents later on did divorce themselves too, so that of course created a different experience. But that was thankfully it happened later in life after my sister and I were out of high school and college. But we've all maintained a very good relationship, and I talk to my parents regularly, and having that established early on certainly helped in my parenting and what I would want to do with my children.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, the reality for so many families now. Family, you can say family, and it's not necessarily always mom and dad living in the same house. And, we have all kinds of different families now. And so creating resources for them that meet them right where they are, that help them through these challenging episodes, or even just the challenge of, separation anxiety or whatever it may be. It's really important. One of the other things that I couldn't help thinking of, when I'm going to date myself here, but that song "Cats in a Cradle."
Yes,
I kind of thought of that a little bit when I read.
Yes, I certainly think about that with my sons too. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so
that does change I say around fifth grade for me. It's where when the kids were in fifth grade, where it all started to shift, where they're calling me up or looking for me to be in touch with them, and then the voicemails or the no answers started, and not responding to texts as quickly as you'd like. So you notice it does shift back around where they're busy, building their own lives.
It's funny, though, because in a sense, you can think about that, and you can think about, your relationship with God, your relationship with Jesus Christ, and how, that's what he wants for us, is this deep, loving connection. He's our creator. He built us to know and love him. And yet sometimes, even for very good causes, we get so busy that we have this, separation that wells up within us, that, we're the ones hitting, ignore that voice call.
Yeah. Really, I'm glad you brought it up that way, because I hadn't thought about it in that precise way. But I do look at parenting, especially being away from my children, quite a bit because of the distance. I look at, you really have to it's all really 100% you in terms of reaching out. If they reach back to you, of course, that's what they should do. But, it's really up to you. And this can happen certainly for empty nesters and over the year, that you really have to be, like, as they say, as God always is the one, looking and searching for us, whether we're there or not. And I feel that when you call God Father, and God is our Father, that we have to look at, what is God doing? How does God reach out to us? Well, he's reaching out to everyone, whether we answer or not. And I think that's a good model for us to be as parents, that we overlook things. We try to look past things, not take things so personally. Try to, the forgiveness factor, and trying to be the best parent, whether it's mother or father, you can be. But really, in terms of reaching out to children, that you have to just do it and give as much as you can. And always be there, even if your child is searching and not responding as much as you'd like or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting how those relationship dynamics change, and just kind of every family working out what works best for them. I'm curious about, as someone who works with words and with creation of publishing materials so regularly, and you've certainly have a long, history of books that you've been in on the creation of. What is it like to do something overtly for children for the first time?
It was a big responsibility. I feel like I'm hoping that it's finding the right balance. It was while I worked with authors and writers for curriculum material in religious education, writing a children's book, especially this very simple one for early readers, where's that balance of using words? Is a story really meaningful? Can everyone understand it? Does it help kind of push the child along in their reading? So I just felt a tremendous amount of responsibility to get it right.
Well, I'd say you did. And I know from my own experience writing for children that they are, I don't want to say harsh critics, but they don't pull any punches with you on what they think about things. And it's sort of like a far greater discipline for me personally to write shorter. So writing fewer words is actually far more challenging than writing more words. Every word in a project like this really matters. And so you've used your words very well, David.
Oh, well, thanks.
Well, again, the name of the book is I Will Not Let Go, Daddy. You can pick this up at Amazon, and we'll have links in our show notes for you to be able to grab it. Amazon or Barnes and Noble, hopefully. That this is something that you might consider not just as a gift for your child, a special occasion gift, but right now, give it to your family as a gift, because certainly with summer reading upon us, the gift of great books is really significant. So this can be something for your own family, for a grandchild, a special child in your life, or even your parish or community library. David, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they have questions?
Oh, well, certainly my email is fine, dziena@gmail.com. That would be fine.
And you can look down at your device that you're listening to the podcast on for how to spell that last name.
Yes. And I'm also on Twitter at Catechist Help, one word, Catechist Help. So I do retweet things helpful for catechists or add some things of my own. So that's my own personal Twitter for work purposes, I guess you'd say.
Awesome. I need some catechist help. That's awesome.
We all do.
Because everyone's a catechist and we're all learning our faith. So
we're changing by the second.
Well, yes. Is there anything, any kind of closing thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners before we let you get back to work?
Well, I just first thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thanks for the listeners for being here and listening and supporting your program. I also wanted to note to mothers that you can support your husbands or the father of children to read with their children and establish a relationship or continue to build on a relationship with the children. I think that's the one thing mothers can do with this, even though the book is written particularly for fathers and daughters, because I don't think there's a ton of resources like that as they are for mothers. I think I try to incorporate a mom figure in the illustrations. Michael did a good job with that, where she's doesn't have any speaking parts, so to speak, but she's there. She's in the background as a supporting Catholic to encourage the relationship. Not feel it's not a matter of being competitive or one parent is better than the other. It's just that I think in this case, I was hoping that just working on that relationship, father-daughter relationship, would be important, and the mothers can be in that supporting role to encourage that.
I think that's really a compelling statement. And, oftentimes we fall into routines as families that, this is dad, dad washes the car and cuts the grass and mom cooks and does story time or whatever. Let's cast those routines to the side here and recognize that these are precious moments that can be had. And it doesn't have to just be bedtime that you do story time. It can really happen, and should happen at organic moments throughout the day. So, well, David, thank you so much for coming on the show. Friends, again, the name of the book is I Will Not Let Go, Daddy. And definitely we'll have links for you to pick this up and to make it part of your life. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Well, that is it for this week's episode. I'm so grateful to all of you for your support, for your encouragement. Definitely, you can help to support the program by leaving an honest and reflective review for us over at iTunes or wherever you listen to this show, or sharing it with a friend. And definitely head over to Breadbox Media for other awesome podcasts that you can discover to help you pass your time growing your faith and really just be encouraged. There's all kinds of great shows over there. I'm so grateful to those of you who reach out to share your feedback. You can do that anytime by emailing me. It's lisahendey@gmail.com, or find me on social media just about anywhere at Lisa Hendey. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you have an awesome week, and I'll see you next time. God bless.
Hello, this is international Catholic singer Anna Nuzzo, inviting you to join me and Father Dan Cambra of the Marian Fathers on a select international tour's Divine Mercy pilgrimage to Poland and the Czech Republic. It takes place in September of 2019, and we would love for you to join us. For more information, go to my website, annanuzzo.com. Thank you, and God bless.
Breadbox Media programming is brought to you by Jack Kane Ford. Find your next Ford Tough vehicle at caneford.com.